Hey, how's it
Hello.
going? Okay, so today we're going to talk about Shelby had a great idea. We get this question a lot. It's people ask us when we're about to inquire on their credit, is that inquire going to affect my credit, my score? Like, what's going to happen? Is it a hard hit or a soft hit? We get that question all the time. People get super nervous about it. So, did you want to start answering it?
Yeah, for sure. So I mean the credit check, like it's not going to be a make it or break it on your credit bureau. If the credit check is going to be a make it or break it, then maybe we're not ready to proceed with a mortgage application. Um, but at the end of the day, when we do a credit check, it is a hard check that we do on your bureau. If it is going to lower your score, because an inquiry can slightly lower your score, could lower it maybe a maximum of like 6 points, something like that. Nothing that is going to put you over or under, or again, if it does put you over or under, then we should wait to pull that inquiry because we're not quite at the point that we should be at. um, and they
Yeah.
did make some changes in May of 2020. Equifax made these changes for anybody who is applying for a mortgage. You can have your bureau pulled X amount of times, or as many times as you need within a 45-day window, provided that it's all related to mortgage financing, and it only acts I'm getting tongue tied, sorry, as if it's only one pull. Whereas, like if you do it, if you look at a car or a credit card during that time frame, that's going to be a separate pull. It won't count towards your as many as you need for mortgage financing. Um, and you'll see each individual inquiry on your bureau, but it's only going to count as one, even though you can see each one that was done.
In terms of what affects, like the effects of it, so like
Yes,
score
yeah,
wise and stuff. Yeah, no, for
yeah.
sure. Like if someone is that close, like that borderline to like, is it going
Hmm.
to work or not going to work, then for sure it's probably not the right time to actually be trying to buy a house.
Yeah, that's when
um
we should wait.
yeah, I mean, we
Yeah.
can still like maybe check, like depending on the situation. Sometimes it's just better for us to like at that point check
Hmm.
and then tell you what you need to do, but
Yeah, to
without
see if there's anything
having.
additional that needs to be worked on that maybe you
Right.
didn't know you needed to do, or maybe we can tell you like, okay, you're almost there, but this is what you need to do to get to that final leg.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So then let's talk about people love to give advice. And
Yes.
so we hear a lot of people telling us what they heard or what the person at the bank that was opening their account said, or what affects their credit, or like, oh, if you pay the credit card off every month, or you need to use like all of that stuff. And
Yeah.
it's like sometimes it's like part of it's true but not all of it, or sometimes it especially depends on what your goal is.
Hmm.
So the advice isn't the same if you're trying to buy a house in terms of what you need for your credit or what's going to help versus like buying a car or like whatever else, right? So like that's a huge thing that people need to realize. It's like be careful who you listen to. And like
Exactly.
Shelby said earlier, because we talked about it a little bit before. She said, in which we see all the time, people ask like on Ask Moncton in on Facebook, people ask like mortgage questions or like any advice, but
Any
like there's.
finance question or anything for advice, which for little things, if you're looking at like, oh, like how can I fix a hole in my wall, like somebody on Ask Moncton could probably tell you what to do. But should you solicit financial advice from local community Facebook groups? I would recommend not to, because most of the answers that you're going to get on there aren't going to be the full answer. Maybe there's some truth to it. Maybe that used to be a thing back in the day when they bought their house, or when they last inquired about it 10 or 15 years ago. But the industry is constantly changing. Regulations are constantly changing with the government, with mortgage lenders, with banks in general. So it's not really the best place to look for it. You should reach out to a qualified professional in that industry. And not everybody, like just because they work in finance doesn't mean that they're qualified to answer about mortgages or about auto loans or about investments. Like, I do mortgages, but don't ask me how you should invest your money, because I'm not a financial advisor. I don't work at investments. Don't ask me about um, the best place to get a car loan at, because I don't deal with car loans. I deal with mortgages. Just like you shouldn't be asking a car salesman about any mortgage or financial questions, or maybe you shouldn't ask a financial advisor something specific about mortgages if they don't do anything with mortgages.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Like a
Yeah.
hundred percent. And even like your parents or like your
Yes.
coworker or like you kind of have to check, like think further, like are they, first of all, are they good with their finances? If you don't know, then they're probably not the right person to ask, because like you
Yeah.
don't know them well enough, right? So
Mhm.
like who are they to, I mean, other than like once you find a right professional in that field, like okay, but other
Yes.
than that, like be careful who you listen to, because it's just sometimes you get advice on different, and also they've had like a different I mean everything, like upbringing, or like their journeys
their
being
their
different.
situation's different, you know what I mean? They might not have gone through the past credit issues or non-credit issues that you've gone through. So
Mm-hmm.
what they had to do is going to be specific to their situation. It may not be something that's going to work for you, or you may not have to go through the same steps that they went through, or depending on when they went through it, it may no longer be the process at hand. So
Right.
it's just, yeah, think about whether or not like these people are financially good themselves. Do they have a net worth? Are they able to save money every month, or are they just living paycheck to paycheck, barely getting by? Well, if
Mm-hmm.
they're living paycheck to paycheck, barely getting by because they're maxed out, they've got 2 car loans, their credit cards are at limit, and they're not really getting, they're just kind of going around in a circle. Maybe they're not the best person to get financial advice from because they're not in the best spot financially themselves.
That's so true. Actually, that's a great point, because a lot of people think like, oh, they're doing so well. They
So
have
much money.
they make so much money, and like they have all these things, and they
They've got
own
a
a big
brand new
house.
2021 car, brand new
Yeah.
boat. They've got an ATV. They definitely like they know what they're doing with their money. No, they're maxed out.
They know
That's what
how
they're
to
doing.
spend their money. And
Yeah.
so for us, like when we hear that, it's kind of like, oh, red flag. Like if they're like, especially when they're like, oh, I have a great cosigner or something like that, which we'll touch on cosigners another one, like
Yeah.
another full video. But like example, they're like, oh, like they're for sure okay, and we're like, oh, like actually that's probably not like the
Yeah.
best
Like they
cosigner,
probably
like
do have really good
depending
credit,
on, yeah,
but like if their boat is financed, if their
doesn't
ATV
mean
is financed, if their vehicles are financed, if their house is financed, they're
you need
probably
to
maxed
add,
out. They're probably
yeah.
spending all their money per month on their financing.
So that's actually not that great in
Mhm.
financial situation. It's actually
Yeah.
not like the best in our eyes, because we see on the other side, we see the list of like, okay, you own all of these things, but then you owe all of this
Yeah.
also. So it's just like it cancels itself out almost. And if they don't save money, which a lot of people who like to spend money won't really save that much,
Yeah.
generally, that's what we see, then they're like actually not like in a great position, or like super wealthy or whatever. Like
Yeah.
they're
And at
not
the end of the
building
day,
up
like
their wealth.
yeah, exactly. And at the end of the day, those assets, like they likely can't sell them for what they owe on them. You know what I mean? Just like how we talked about in the last video with how cars depreciate in value. Well, if you've got 2 cars that are financed and you're maxed out to the nines and you're trying to find a way, like how can I save a little bit of money? Well, if you can't sell your cars for what you owe on them, well, that's not a good financial decision either.
No, you're stuck. You don't have any options other than
Yeah.
like hope that you always can make the same amount like per month, like
Yeah.
income
Or
wise.
then
So
that's when
that's
people look at trading in their vehicle to buy a cheaper one for less payments, but they don't realize by trading in their vehicle, they're not going to just get rid of all of their loan. They're still going to have some of that loan left. It's just going to be wrapped into the new car loan. So your payments might go down a little bit, but you only have 4 years left remaining, but now you've got 7 years.
yeah. It's mostly like the net worth that comes down
Mhm.
to like how much do you owe versus what you own. If you sold everything, what your net worth is, like what's left, like how much would you have in your mortgage, and like if you have cars that have like equity or like paid off, like everything combined, which I think people don't really realize that or think about it, because we don't talk about it enough, I guess, or we weren't taught about net worth enough.
Yeah, we weren't taught to look at those things and to plan for that. You know what I mean? We were taught like, okay, well, you need to get a car. This is how you get a car loan.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And also another point to make is that also for like, let's say you're asking advice for anything, but let's say mortgage advice, because what like because that person has a mortgage, it doesn't make them like an expert in mortgages. Like, are
Yeah.
you an expert in cars because you have one car or car loan? Like, no. So like people forget that like just listening, it's fine to like kind of get like ask someone that you trust and know that maybe, I mean, you want their advice,
Yeah, of course.
and listen to what, or just listen to what people have to say. I
Mhm.
mean, if they just want to
But
kind of throw it at you,
yeah, don't take it as
you don't
gospel
have
though.
to know, like you don't
Yeah.
have to be like, oh well, they did this whatever, and like try to
Mhm.
like just like find that right person, or like very few people to like bounce ideas back. And but like literally just like I would say go see someone that actually like does that for a living, because
Yeah.
it's just you're just kind of wasting time if you're kind of going to see everyone else before
Mhm.
even coming to us, and then throwing all these like ideas or like what everyone else did, and
Yeah, these
when we're trying
possible
to tell you
scenarios, like, yeah, we'll get people that'll contact us and we'll be like, oh, okay, like we can't proceed right now because of this, and that. And we'll tell them what they need to do, but then they'll come back and they'll say, oh, like, I was talking to my mom on the phone the other day, and she told me like when she bought her house, she did this. Can we do that too? And it was like, well, your mom bought her house 30 years ago. So no, that's not a thing anymore. That's a thing of the past. That's why I told you to do this. If that was a possibility, I would have definitely presented that as a possibility to you, because at the end of the day, like, I want you to buy a house. I want to refinance your mortgage. I make money when you guys do this. So if I can make it happen, why won't I make it happen?
yeah, like when it goes through. Like
Yeah.
yeah,
It's like I'm
literally.
going to do everything I can in my power to make this work for you, because
Uh,
I want to make money at the end of the day. I don't care what bank we send it to because they all pay me the same. But at the end of the day, I want to get you into that house. I want to get you a lower interest rate because the bank pays me when I do that.
that's a
Yeah.
goal. So like we don't try to not make it work. Like some
Yeah.
people I feel like they're like, well, are you sure like this
Yeah. And
person
it's like,
has
no, I'm,
this?
I'm
And it's like,
positive. If there was another way, I would have found that way, because then, you know what I mean? Then I would have gotten paid for that hour that I spent giving you advice.
right,
Where
right.
now, where there is no way, I'm not getting paid for giving you advice for that hour.
I know, yeah, we're so nice.
Yeah.
We work tons of days. Um, so yeah, no, that's like I think people don't see it that way.
Mhm.
They definitely need to.
Yeah.
And like stop asking Moncton for advice. Don't go on Facebook groups. Don't do it.
Yeah.
I
It's
mean,
not the best
maybe
place to solicit it.
we thought about like because we see some we get tagged in those posts sometimes, and people ask for like, oh, a great mortgage broker or whatever
Yeah.
financial, or I want to buy a house and who should I go to, and then there's like 50 different people, which probably
Yeah.
doesn't help. I just get overwhelmed. I'm like, oh my gosh, like did that help at all? I'm like curious, but which is fine
Yeah.
because I get it. Like people can just skim and kind of see who's out
See who's,
there and
recommended the
kind of get
most
a
and things
list,
like that, and maybe
like
go with that person. But
a few names. But
maybe
it's
don't
just
ask specific mortgage questions on there.
yeah, but like we see what people will respond to certain things, and we're like,
Yeah.
oh my god, like that's not at all like accurate. Like so we might eventually do
Yeah.
like not like mean tweets, but like funny like mortgage
Yeah.
advice. We might do a some
Funny mortgage comments.
comments, yeah, and then like
Yeah.
maybe like bust the myths, or well,
Yeah.
not
And
myths,
then
but
we can
like
explain why we thought it was funny. And like, I see them all the time, and I always want to like comment back on them and be like, no, actually, it doesn't work this way because of this. But if I did that, I would literally spend my entire day just commenting back on Facebook posts, explaining how mortgages work to people that don't actually want my advice, because they're
yeah,
not looking at a mortgage. They're just giving unsolicited advice for what their experience was
yeah.
10 years ago.
Yeah, and I mean like mortgages, it changes so quickly. Like
And
literally
5 years ago,
in
it's
even
different from
like
what it
two
was
or
then.
three. Yeah, like it
Yeah.
keeps changing all the time. So like or adding new, yeah, it's just
Yeah.
you can't even and like you can't compare your situation to the one other person. Like it's probably not the same.
No.
Income's not the same, debts aren't the same,
Mm-mm.
down payment, like everything. There's so
Yeah.
many,
Credit
so many
history, like,
credit history,
yeah,
like all of that stuff.
location that you're buying your house in, that can also be a factor as well. Marketability at the time that you're purchasing it, whether it's a seller's market, a buyer's market. There's so many different things that go into it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Mhm.
So cool. Well, that was a
Yeah.
good one. I think
Yeah,
so.
I feel good.
Anyways, I always like our videos. Okay, cool. Well, hopefully that helped. And if you guys have questions, send us or write in the comments or
Yep.
send us a message and we'll answer them. All
Yeah, for sure.
right.
Awesome.
Awesome. See you next week.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.